لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ومن تبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's a second part of going through the text of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah's Al-Amr al-Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar, the short risala on enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. The point that we'd left it off at last time was the fact that Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi said, and he defined what's good, what's khair and what's shar. And we went through some of the principles concerning al-amru bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar. Continuing with the text, Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi says that it's from the falsehood of the thought of certain people that they think that differing as it relates to enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is something good. In other words, Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah, he speaks about the falsehood and the evil that occurred during differences as it relates to enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. And he tells us a bit about the causes of why that happens. He says that there's one group of person, one category of person that falls into sin and disobedience. That's the first group. The second group is one that keeps quiet, not fulfilling his or her obligation on enjoining the good and forbidding falsehood. And that's a sin of theirs then. That's a personal sin that they've fallen into. Then another group, it enjoins the good and it forbids the evil, but in a way that is forbidden from or forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's also a sin of theirs. The end result of that, he says, rahimahullah, as it relates to each one of these three groups is division. Division. And in another book, actually, Shaykh al-Islam, Al-Istiqamah, he actually mentions this point in a very succinct and clear way. He says, Ahl sunnati wal jama'ah, they are people of jama'ah. They, yani, yajtami'una al-haq, alladhina yajtami'una. They gathered upon the truth. They gathered upon the truth, upon the kitab and the sunnah. And he says, therefore, the people of innovation, the people of bid'ah are known as Ahlul Bid'ah wal Dalala, or in other words, Ahlul Bid'ah wal Furqa, people of division, people of innovation and people of division. And here's a very important point, isn't it? The fact that the person, he is by nature, kind of dhaluman jahula, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentions from the Quran 72:23. His basis is ignorance. His basis is oppression, not knowing which way to go unless he looks at the Kitab and the Sunnah, refers back to the Kitab and the Sunnah. Then he'll know what's good, what's bad. He can't make it up as he goes along. So to have this belief or to have this methodology into thinking that differences are a mercy in this ummah, it's absolutely batil. Min al-abatil. Keep on differing, it's okay. You differ, I'll differ, we all differ. That's not the purpose. Ummatan wahidatan. Ummah has to be one, yani al-kitabi was sunnah. So this is an important point that he, rahimahullahu ta'ala alayhi, makes as it relates to the three category of people. In relation to enjoining good and forbidding the evil, and the level of culpability and the level of sin. It varies in how they react, or the level of being close to the truth, it varies. So this, you pray your way, I'll pray my way. You fast your way and I'll fast my way. All of it is accommodated within Islam. It's a false notion. The prophets were commanded not to split. The ummah was commanded not to split. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ كَانُوا شِيعًا لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ شَيْءٍ. Those who differed in their religion, nothing remained of them. Those who differed in their deen, nothing was left for them. They became people who were immaterial, insignificant. Nothing remained of them of any worth or any notability. So differing is not a mercy. The purpose is to unite upon the truth. Not for the sake of unity, but to unite upon the truth. Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi, then he moves on to types of sins. After talking a bit some of the causes of why people differ, greed, pride, ghutta, falling into envy, etc. Something we may look at today. He mentions types of sins, and he says that for this reason, sins are of three types. The first type of sin is a sin that, because of that or due to that, you oppress others. Taking people's property, usurping people's property, taking their rights. Of course, we know huquq are of two types. Rights are of two types, huququllah and huququl ibad. Rights of Allah upon the slave, and the rights that the slaves have upon one another, huququl ibad. This first group, it sins because it oppresses others. Maybe due to envy, maybe due to hasad, maybe due to that jealousy, that burning furnace that wipes away the sins, the way fire consumes wood. Jealousy, hasad. Shaykh Fawzan, hafidhahullahu ta'ala alayhi, in many of his explanations of books of Aqidah that he has, even in his explanation of Arba'un al-Nawawi, he says clearly that hasad is what? There are different forms of hasad. And one form is that you envy the fact that your brother has something and you wish he didn't have it at all. Ibn Taymiyyah mentions this also. You wish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took that blessing away from him. This is the worst form of hasad. The other type is that you wish that you also had that and even had it better than what he has it. Another type of envy is that you wish that the blessings were removed from him and instead they came to you. So hasad takes various forms. It takes various forms. So this is the first type of sin. The second type of sin is where a person oppresses himself. Allahumma inni dhalamtu nafsi dhulman kathira. Allah, I've oppressed myself. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Oppressing oneself by way of sin. Yani he drinks alcohol, he falls into fornication, etc. The third type of sin he mentions, rahimahullah, is a sin which combines both of the above. For example, the ruler, he takes a property of people and he uses it for haram. He uses it to buy intoxicants. He uses it for zina, etc. The reason Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah mentions these three types of sins is because he says that each one of these sins requires enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. And there's a manhaj, there's a methodology in dealing with each and every one. There's a methodology in rectifying oneself, informing and self-critiquing oneself. Muhasibatun nafs. Hasibu anfusakum qabla an tuhasabu. To enjoin the good and to forbid the evil. Inviting that nafs. Then, when you're oppressing others, how others are going to deal with you, how they are going to enjoin the good and forbid the evil in face of the oppression. And then when, for example, the ruler may oppress, how does one deal with that situation? The sunnah is clear. The way of the Sahaba is clear. Nowadays, there's a lot of confusion concerning this topic. How do we deal with the ruler? Shaykh al-Islam in the same book, later on from the examples that he gives about how to deal with people, he mentions specifically the ruler. In another text, Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala he says that if I knew that Allah Azza wa Jal was to accept one dua of mine, if I knew for certainty Allah is going to accept this dua, I'd make that dua, I'd reserve that dua for the ruler. Because if the ruler is rectified, then that society, the subjects which are beneath it, are also in a state of rectification. It's easier for them to be rectified. This is how the Aslaf, the Salaf were as it relates to the rulers. Not like you might hear today. In private gatherings, brothers and sisters, so-and-so ruler is this one, so-and-so ruler is that one. And then they'll come and sit on the stage and they'll say, we shouldn't rebel against the ruler. We shouldn't rebel against the ruler. And some of them have now come and said that rebellion is of different types. No, it's not. It's of different types from one nature, one side, and it's not of different types from the other side. Rebellion is not allowed, full stop. There's certain conditions only which the Ahlul Ilm, Ahlul Halli wal Aqd will give. Not for me and you and everybody to stand up and say, it's okay to speak about the ruler. Not when you're in a group, in majlis, a gathering where there's a youngster sitting right next to you, maybe 15, 16-year-old, doesn't even have a beard yet, he's very young. And you've got an audience of youngsters in front of you, And you start saying we shouldn't have ghulu. We shouldn't be extreme in not warning against the rulers, not speaking against the rulers. In other words, it's okay to speak against the rulers. No, it's not okay to speak against the rulers. From the angle where there are types of rebellion, then there is khuruj bis-sayf, rebelling against a ruler with the hand. There is also khuruj bil-lisan, khuruj bil-qawl, rebelling against a leader with your tongue. No one from Ahl Sunnah has ever said that there's only one type of khuruj, and that is khuruj bis-sayf, that is fighting with arms. It's restricted to that. No one's ever said that. Not from the mutaqaddimeen anyway, from the first 3 generations. No one's ever said that. They made ijtihadat, that's a separate issue. Ibn Rajab says that when someone makes ijtihad, he's either correct or incorrect, and we don't rely on that. That's his ijtihad. 1 reward or 2 rewards. That's not a hujjah for us. ومن يشاكك الرسول من بعد ما تبين له الهدى ويتبع غير سبيل المؤمنين نوله ما تولى ونصله جهنم وساءت مصيرا. So this is an era, a time where people who ought to know better. These are not my words. Ibn Taymiyyah mentions this example specifically in this book about the ruler. This problem is old, it's qadim, it's nothing new. Ruler this, ruler that. So he tries to intimate to people, he tries to say to people that warning against the ruler or rebelling against the ruler, it's only done if you lift arms against him. This is a false notion. Warning against the ruler is also done through the tongue, and it's not permissible to openly criticize him. This is a part of khuruj. This is a form of khuruj. Sahih al-Bukhari and others. Time is short. The first one to speak against the ruler with his speech, Imam Bukhari brings the chapter heading in his Al-Jami al-Sahih, was Dhul Khuwaisra. اعدل يا محمد فإنك لم تعدل. اتق الله يا محمد. Oh Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What was that? He didn't invite anyone to raise arms against the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. What did the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam say? What did Bukhari understand? What did Shafi'i understand? What did Malik understand? What did Ibn al-Madini and others understand from this? Ahmad ibn Hanbal, what did the ulama understand from this? What chapter headings have they given the hadith? When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that from the loins of this man, from the progeny of this man will come those who will strike the neck of the people, will cause rebellion, cause falsehood. يقرؤون القرآن, they'll recite the Quran, but it won't go فوق حناجرهم, it won't go higher than their throats. So the point is what? The point is, as it relates to the rulers, brothers and sisters, rebellion is of different types, from the angle of that you can rebel with the hands, likewise you can rebel with the tongue, you can rebel with the pen. All of this is part of rebellion. Rebellion through pen, through writing, none of this is permissible. The asl is that it's not permissible. This is not from the manhaj of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Don't pay any attention to anyone who says any different. Sheikh Fawzan says rebellion with the speech is impermissible. Sheikh Ibn Baz said that. Ibn Uthaymin said that. Rahimahullah ajma'in. Don't look at what's being said. Ibn Uthaymin said this and that. No, he didn't. So that's a point that I wanted to mention in a few minutes. It's important not to just skim over a text when you're looking at it, especially points which are relevant for us today. Naam. Then Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi, after informing us of what are the types of sins, he moves on to what's the cure for sins. After giving us a framework on how to deal with each level of culpability, each level of sin, how do we then deal with that sin? What's the cure to these things? Naam. Especially the things that lead to sin, like envy, jealousy, hasad, wanting what that ruler has, for example. So you start speaking against, etc. You don't look at yourself. Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that the evil is what? Number one, that the falsehood that's present, it must be replaced with good. Where there's sin, wipe away the sin by doing good. Innal hasanati yudhibna sayyat. Wipe away the sin. The shaitan comes to us and he says that let the sin carry on. Even if it's within the ability to change that, the person, he lets that sin carry on. Then we know from various ahadith, as Shaykh al-Islam mentions, then the burden of that sin falls back upon that person who has the ability, has the istita, has the qudra to change that, to speak about that within the framework of the deen. he knows his place, and he speaks within the framework of the deen, then that sin falls upon him. For example, a father can't see his son or his daughter do haram and stay silent, especially if it's within his ability to say to his son, why are you not praying the salah? The sin may well then fall upon that father. That's the point here. That's a practical application of that point. So the first cure then is to replace that sin with khair, with goodness, with good deeds. Because the good deeds, they wipe away the sins. You have other ahadith. Give charity, the Prophet ﷺ said, for example. Charity wipes away the sins the way water extinguishes fire. That's the point here. Good deeds will wipe away the sin. The second point that Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala makes concerning this is, the second cure rather, is that a person, he continues to have sabr. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يُوقِنُونَ. He mentions that ayah, sabr. When the people, they had sabr, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed a'imma over them, rulers over them, that were obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They had yaqeen upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, upon the decree of Allah azza wa jal. So sabr is a key. Whatever the situation, the person, he doesn't leave sabr. So he has yaqeen and sabr. Certainty that the promise of Allah azza wa jal is true. Mata nasrullah, ala inna nasrullahi kareeb. When is the help of Allah going to come, O Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam? Look at how we're suffering, the companions they used to say, especially in the Meccan period. The Prophet ﷺ reminded them, look at how the Anbiya before you and the Rusul before you, the people of Tawheed, the Muwahidun before you, look at how they suffered. Some of them would have an iron comb, the hadith mentions, run down from head to toe down their body, and they'd be ripped to shreds. But they wouldn't leave what they were upon. They had patience. In other words, what you're suffering is far less than what they suffered before you. And some of them were killed. They were martyred. Broad daylight, Ibn Kathir in his Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya mentioned Qasas al-Anbiya. Some of the Anbiya were martyred in broad daylight. And hence the hadith in Sahih Muslim and other books, it mentions that on the Day of Judgment, some prophets will come before Allah Azza wa Jal with a few followers, some with one follower, and some with 0 followers. Allahu Akbar Kabira. No followers. Did they not enjoin the good and forbid the evil? Of course they did. That was their function, that was their job, that was their duty. But yet they had no followers. Do you think that doesn't require sabr? قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي دَعُوتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. Allah, day and night, Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam said, the Prophet Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, day and night, I'm calling these people 900 plus years. Day and night I'm calling them. Only a few people believed in Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. His own son denied the message. Does that not require sabr? Yes, it does. So having yaqeen that the help of Allah is near. When will the help of Allah come? Indeed, the help of Allah is near. So these are the 2 cures that Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullahu ta'ala alayh, he mentions. Actually, interestingly also, he mentions within the same text how another group of people are a cause of deviation or munkar, falsehood. And he specifically mentions the example of poets. Poets, what we might call, and I'm just going to make a general statement here, I don't mean specifically any particular one, but generally we could say nasheed artists. I'm a nasheed artist. What he means by that nowadays is that I have a banjo and a violin playing in the background, and some people maybe even dancing, especially with the Sufiya, dancing in the background, some women maybe even clapping. And back home in Pakistan, the men actually get up and they dance. Walayudu billah, even an animal, if he saw them, he'd be ashamed at how these people are dancing. They don't even know how to dance, Allah Musta'an. On a serious note though, they call this ibadah, they call it hadra, they call it this and the new false names that they'd made up. So Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah mentions that a cause of falsehood and munkar in society of old, and of course present today as well, you'll see it, is the poets. The poets, they go beyond bounds. So therefore he mentions, rahimahullahu ta'ala alayh, that as for the poets, Most of the poets, he says, are those people, Naam, who actually it puts them into four categories, puts poets into four categories. One type is the one who talks about loved ones and love poetry, etc. One is another one who talks about nationalistic feelings and he arouses those feelings of patriotism, etc. One is one who laments over calamities of the past. How back in the day this used to happen, that used to happen. And one is one who talks about poems of flattery or ease and joy, etc. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said in the Quran concerning the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, وَمَا عَلَّمْنَاهُ الشِّعْرَ وَمَا يَنبَغِي لَهُ. O Prophet of Allah, we didn't make you into a poet. You are not a poet. You're not a poet. You came, the what? تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده ليكون للعالمين نذيرا. What came to you was a criterion, not possibly this or possibly that. That word possibly meant this or it possibly meant that. This line of poetry possibly meant this or it had the ihtimalat, possibly that. The likelihood of it is this or the likelihood of it might be that. It could be interpreted like this. It's like going to a gallery, a museum, and there's a painting there. And someone, or maybe the guide of the museum, he says to you, you've got a group of people there staring at that painting and they say, what does that painting say to you? And everyone has their own view. That painting says this to me. Yes. Another person says, that painting actually means that to me. Another one says, you know what, my take on that painting is this. The Quran and Sunnah are not like that. They're not like this. They're not open to this suggestion or that suggestion. We have to go back to the way of the Salaf. Ni'ma salafu ana laki. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is the first of those, and then those that followed him, and then those that followed him. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَعُهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ. There's no such thing as, let me give my own interpretation of the book and the Sunnah. In fact, when Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he went to debate with the Khawarij, one of the very first things, as per the Athar in Ibn Abi Shayba and other books, that he mentioned to them as a hujjah upon them, as an evidence against them, was that أَتَيْتُكُمْ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ مُحَمَّدٍ النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. I've come to you as an authority from whom? From the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Muhajirin and the Ansar. And they understood the Quran better than you. And they understood the interpretation of the Quran better than you. And they were around when the Quran was being revealed in the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So don't start giving me your false interpretations of the Quran. I'm going to keep on referring you back to the way of the Salaf. This is Salafiyah, is it not? This is Salafiyah in practical, pragmatic action. It's night, it's like it's a clear cut. I'm going to take you back to the Salaf. Don't give me possibilities. إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. My opinion is this, or his opinion is that, or that scholar's opinion is this. La. So this is the point that Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah mentioned. He says these poets, they arouse emotions. They arouse emotions, a bit like a sect of the Khawarij known as the Qa'idiyya. Dhahabi in his Siyar al-Alam al-Nubala and others, and scholars, they mention about this sect. Even Abdul Qadir Jailani rahimahullah, he mentions the Khawarij in his Ghunya. Qa'idiyya who? Those that aroused the emotions of people. The ruler is this, that ruler is this. And Imran ibn Hittan and others, look at the books of the biographies of Sir and you'll hear about this. They aroused the emotions of people. Look at that falsehood over there, but they didn't do anything themselves. When the time came, they just sat back. In fact, this is evidence also, isn't it, that khuruj is not only with the hands. Khuruj is also done bil qawl, bil lisan, through speech, through incitement. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all. So he makes this point about the poets. Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullahu ta'ala alayhi, then he moves on to a very significant point, linked into the point that we've just made. In fact, it's an extremely significant point. He says that one of the fears that the shaitan puts into a person is that if you do this good thing, you're going to fall into some kind of temptation. You're going to open up the door for sinning. So you're better off not doing that right thing. You're better off staying away from enjoying that good. If you do that right thing, if you enjoy that good, you're going to fall into some kind of temptation, some kind of sin yourself. So you're better off just staying back, not doing that thing yourself. And here, Shaykh Islam, over a couple of pages that I'm going to go through with you, inshallah ta'ala, he gives us some detail, some tafsil and tafsir concerning that point. Na'am. He says, he's mentioned Surah At-Tawbah, ayah 49. ومنهم من يقول أذن ولا تفتني على في الفتنة سقطوا. There are some people, they say that if we go towards this good, they want to be excused, in other words. I want to be excused from doing that good thing because of the temptation that I might fall into. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, they've already fallen into temptation. Understand this point. From this, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah brings a qaida, a principle. So some people are invited towards good. This tafsir actually of this verse was concerning Al-Jad ibn Qais. Al-Jad ibn Qais. When the Prophet ﷺ ordered him to prepare for one of the battles against the Romans, he said, if I go towards this khair, if I go towards this good, if I go towards this enjoying the good, I might be tempted by the women folk of the Romans. What time, Maghrib? Okay, we're going to pray Maghrib Salah, inshallah. And we're going to continue straight after Maghrib, inshallah ta'ala. Na'am. Give the adhan, inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa ba'd. Naam. So the tafsir of this particular ayah. Amongst them are those who say, excuse me and don't expose me to temptation. But indeed, you've already fallen into temptation. So, Al-Ja'ad ibn Qais, and the tafsir there concerning him. Or some said Jadd ibn Qais. This is the one that stayed behind in the Bay'ah Ridwan, yani the Bay'ah under the tree. لقد رضي الله عن المؤمنين إذ يبايعونك تحت الشجرة. And Ibn Taymiyyah says he hid behind the red camel. Sirah ibn Hisham, volume 4, page 316. All of these things are also from the Tariq also. Tafsir ibn Kathir, you can look at the tafsir of this particular ayah. The point is what? When the Prophet ﷺ, he said that get ready and prepare for the battle against the Romans, he said that the white women, the women folk, they're going to be a temptation for me. And I fear that if I go there, then I'm going to unable to stay away from sin and I'm going to fall into sin. The Prophet ﷺ said, turned his face away from him and he said, I've excused you. Sirah ibn Hisham. So he said in another hadith, all of you been forgiven his sins except the man of the red camel. Yani those who took the pledge of allegiance beneath the tree just before the truce of the Hudaybiyah. He hid behind the red camel. All of you have been forgiven except for the man that hid behind the red camel. So that's why Allah SWT revealed this particular ayah. He revealed this ayah. That they want to be excused. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ then li. You want to be excused. Yani, I fear that if I do this good thing, I'm going to fall into sin. So the shaitan then he deludes us into thinking, and this is falsehood, that if I do that good, I'm going to fall into sin. So what do? We abandon that good. We abandon warning from that falsehood, or we abandon that good thing. And we also then, there's multiple layers here. We also abandon wiping away our own sins. As we said previously, in al-hasanat yudhibna sayyi'at. Good deeds wipe away the sins. So there's multiple layers here of culpability, if you want to call it that. So Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, essentially he's saying that this is something which we have to be careful of. This is something that we have to be careful of. Yani, you've already fallen into sin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Or you've already fallen rather into temptation. How? By not going. You've already been tempted by desire or by falsehood, by refraining back from good. So what else are you worried about now? That if I'm going to go, I'm going to fall into falsehood, I'm going to fall into sin, I'm going to fall into temptation. But you've already fallen into that by not going, by not enjoying the good. So it's like that circular thing that's going around. So this is something that we have to be careful of. And sometimes we may face this situation. You know, I don't want to speak to that brother about, join the feet in salah, complete the rows. I'm sure there's better examples. Don't leave any gaps in the rows. We're shy now, aren't we? We're shy of speaking about the sunnah. It was very easy a few years back. All of a sudden, we're very shy speaking about that. I'm very shy saying to that brother, Akhi, you know what, try your best to grow a beard or whatever. He's going to say, oh, don't you remember the time when you never had a beard? No. Don't let that worry you. Someone might even present an ayah of the Quran to him. أَتَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبِرِّ وَتَنْسَوْنَ أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ تَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. You think you're telling people, don't lie, don't cheat, complete the rows. I've seen you pray in this way. Why are you telling the people for? No, don't pay any attention. Keep on enjoying the good to the best of your ability. That's the point that Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi makes. And especially as it relates to innovation nowadays, bid'ah. Oh, you're telling people someone's passed away, don't do this sin, don't do that custom. That custom is against the sunnah. That customary practice is a bid'ah. But look, some of your own family members do that bid'ah. Why are you going to tell the people? What face are you going to tell the people? Don't pay any attention to this. Read Surah An-Nas. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. The shaitan does what? He whispers, and then when you remember Allah, when you seek the help of Allah, it's khannas, al-khannas. Yani he runs away, flees away. So don't be a person who falls into that thinking into what I would call self-righteousness, a false self-righteousness. It's not self-righteousness. It's not righteousness at all. It's falsehood. That I'm not going to do something good because someone's going to say, well, you should do that false thing yourself. I'm going to fall into temptation. La. Don't be like that. So Shaykh Sam rahimahullah ta'ala, he gives that example. Naam. He actually, whilst talking about this particular ayah and explaining this ayah, one of the examples he gives, he talks about two different groups. One of the groups that he speaks about is a group that enjoins and forbids in order to assist the people, to remove chaos and to remove temptations. And instead of removing that chaos, they actually lead people into greater chaos, greater temptation. Yani they try to, these are Ibn Taymiyyah's words, not mine. They try to remove chaos and temptation out of the way of people. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah says what they actually done was they created even greater chaos, even greater temptation, even greater confusion for the people. He says this is the example of the people who fight with one another and dispute with one another, and they attack and oppose one another as Muslims. And this is the example of the Khawarij, the extremists. Our scholars, walillah alhamd, are persistently consistent from that time to now. Yani, are we now going to say that Ibn Taymiyyah was from the ulama as-salatin, scholar of the rulers? No. He was in prison. Not at all. That they tried to remove temptation and chaos out of the way of the people, and what they actually led the people to was even greater chaos, like the Khawarij. In another group, it didn't enjoin right, nor did he forbid any kind of falsehood. They didn't do that. They've already fallen into falsehood. I don't want to do that because if I do it, I don't actually implement it myself. So how can I call people to uphold the awamir and stay away from the nawahi, the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I don't do that myself. You've already fallen into temptation. These are the two examples that Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala alayh, he gives. So a very important principle. Once again, just to labor the point home, Shaykh al-Islam, he, in another part of the book, now later on towards the latter part of the book, he speaks about the falsehood of those people that fight or oppose the ruler. One may think that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala alayh, and if someone said this today, people make so many accusations. Why do you defend the rulers? Well, Shaykh al-Islam was a renowned Imam of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, of the people of Sunnah. One of the themes you'll see in this text, many of the examples that he gives about how rightly to enjoin good and forbid evil and how to do that the wrong way, when you see that he labors home the point about the Khawarij, about the extremists and about rulers and rulership, how they misunderstood that methodology and how they applied a false methodology, causing chaos and fasad and fitna. Inna Allah la yuhibbul mufsideen. Allah does not love those who cause fitna and fasad. Wallahu ya'lamul mufsida min al-muslih. Walau sha'allahu la'natakum. Allah knows who's the one who wants to rectify and who's the one who's just causing chaos and destruction and fitna and fasad. Who's the person of tawheed who's calling to that, and who's the person of shirk, waliyadu billah. So therefore, Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala, he labors his point home later on in his text again about the obligation of having sabr as it relates to the rulers. Addu ilayhim hukukahum wasalullaha hukukakum. O Prophet of Allah, the companions, they're asking about rulers. He said, alayhi salatu wasalam, keep on giving them their rights. And if they're not giving you your rights, then ask for your rights from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, have patience. You're going to get rewarded, are you not, for not being given that right that's rightly yours? Ask for your rights from Allah Azza wa Jal. So Shaykh al-Islam, he mentioned some of these hadith from Tirmidhi. And then interestingly, and this was a methodology of Shaykh al-Islam in the wide, if you look at the books, if you were to take like a snapshot of Shaykh al-Islam's methodology, he compares the correct way with the false way. And he then explains why that false way is incorrect from so many different facets, so many different angles, so many different variations, the whole wide spectrum of reasons why going against the rulers is false. And he actually here gives a very interesting example. He gives the example of the Mu'tazila, the sect known as the Mu'tazila. I was specifically told by one of our noble brothers a few days ago, make sure you keep the class very simple, right? So I'm going to try my best to keep this as simple as I can. Mu'tazila, very simple. People of bid'ah. People of bid'ah. People who used their intellect over the Quran and Sunnah. Their opinions over the Quran and Sunnah. People who try to understand the Quran and Sunnah only through what their intellect said to them or spoke to them with. In other words, people of desires, people of bid'ah, people of innovation. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah says, if you want to take an example of how people thought they were trying to do good, but they actually led to falsehood, look at the example of the Khawarij, because it's a part of one of the core beliefs of the Khawarij. From amongst their 5 core beliefs, one of their core beliefs is what? To enjoin the good and forbid the evil, and to oppose the ruler, to fight the ruler. To oppose and make khuruj against the ruler. That's one of the core beliefs of the Mu'tazila. That's one of the core beliefs of the Mu'tazila. Ibn Taymiyyah says that we are free from this particular path. Rahimahullahu ta'ala alayhi. What's the cure then? What does Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah say is the cure? The cure to all the chaos, all the destruction, all the falsehood, everything that's happening of falsehood in the society, what's the cure? Simply put, and I'll summarize this in a few sentences, by Bidhnillahi ta'ala alayhi, is that to turn back to the very basics and the very essence of Islam. Yani istislami bi tawheedillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To submit back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Who wants to choose a path other than the path of Islam, other than the path of submission to Allah? مَنْ يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ. Who wants to choose a path other than submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the one that He told us to obey, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? Allah leave him to that, and it's a path of destruction for him. شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم إن الدين عند الله Islam. And he combined the fact that the angels and the people of knowledge, they all bear witness to his ibadah, to his wahdaniyah, to his rububiyyah, uluhiyyah, to his al-asma wa sifat. Don't worship anyone other than him and submit to Allah. Go back to, if you want to enjoy the good and forbid the evil truly, then go back to the essence of what that entails. And then he gives us the meaning of Islam. To have ikhlas, sincerity, and to have al-ikbalu wal-inqiyadu, to have complete submission, without arrogance, without pride. Just because someone's telling you about something good or telling you to stay away from something false, and he might be younger than you, doesn't mean that you have the right now to turn away. Envy of that other person, hatred of that other person, falsehood, wanting to put that person down. And so many barriers for that person in making him stay away from enjoying the good and forbidding the evil. Then Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah, he gives us further examples of what that means. قُلْ إِنَّنِي هَدَانِي رَبِّي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ دِينًا قِيَمًا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Surah Al-An'am. And you want to submit to Allah, you want to enjoy the good and forbid the evil, make your ibadah purely for Allah, have ikhlas. And then follow that up with righteous actions, salah, sacrifice, turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make sure you have the practical applications of what it is to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the essence of enjoining good and forbidding evil. I just want to finish off actually today with just one or two statements of the Salaf, the companions, in how they used to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Just a few examples, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala alayh. These examples are not particularly found in Shaykh al-Islam's text, but it sort of corroborates and consolidates what Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah is trying to say. This is how the Salaf were as it relates to enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, he became very upset with one of the treasurers for not paying the worker on time. And خيثة قال كنا جلوسا مع عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما إذا جاءوا كهرمان له فدخل فقال أعطيت الرقيق قوتهم قال لا قال فانطلق فأتهم قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كفى بالمرء إثما أن يحبسها أم من يملك قوته. That the person, يعني رواه مسلم, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates that Haytham radiallahu ta'ala anhu says that we were sitting by Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and his treasurer came. And Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu asked him, have you given the workers their money? He said, no. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, give them their money. Because I heard the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam say that it's enough to destroy a person. It's enough of a sin that he withholds from the people that right which is theirs, of that spending that they have. That's their right of their employment. In other words, it's enough of a thing to destroy that person. That you hold back that which doesn't belong to you, and it belongs to that person. An example then of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. The companions, they didn't stay silent on these things. And it's not a small thing. How many times does a person fall into something like that? Another example, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala an, the hadith, دعا ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما أبا أيوب فرأى في البيت سترا على الجدار فقال ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما وغلبنا عليه النساء فقال من كنت أخشى عليه فلم أكن أخشى عليك والله لا أتأم لكم طعاما فرجع. ذكره البخاري. Abdullah ibn Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه called Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, the illustrious companion Abu Ayyub al-Ansari رضي الله تعالى عنه, to a feast, to some food. So when Abu Ayyub al-Ansari رضي الله تعالى and he entered the house, he saw a picture on the wall. So Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he said that the women folk, they busied us in putting this picture of this image of. The women made us do that. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu ta'ala, and he said, I thought that someone else would do something like this. I didn't expect this from you. Wallahi, I won't eat in your house. Allahu Akbar kabira. And he left without eating. Sahih al-Bukhari. Look at how the companions are when they're able to take that stance. And that's another thing, isn't it, brothers? As it relates to the companions, we don't have the aqidah of people of falsehood. Companions are not prophets. Even actually in the errors of the companions, there's a mercy for us. There's a benefit for us. Afallahu ankum. Allah has forgiven them people. Allah has forgiven them people. Allah is pleased with them people. وَالتَّرَحْمُ فِي جَمِيعِ أَصْحَابِ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. Aqidatul Raziyain, one of the books of Aqidah, it's our job, it's our duty to seek the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these people. These people are blessed. So we don't speak ill of the companions. But these errors or mistakes, call it what you like, they're a source of blessing and learning and wisdom for us. These are things, Abdullah ibn Abbas and Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, they used to say to the tabi'een, that you people, you see the sins as something small, and we used to see these sins. You see these sins today as like a small twig. And we used to see these sins as mountains that were standing right above us and they were ready to fall on us. We used to see these sins as something really big. Nowadays, you go to a house and never mind pictures, there's all sorts happening. We don't mind. We don't mind. Likewise, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala sending the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon whom لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْوَاشِمَاتِ وَالْمُسْتَبْشِمَاتِ. The hadith is there, isn't it? Curse of Allah be upon the one who's plucking her eyebrows and yani doing the tattoos, etc. Making space between her teeth, the woman, for beauty and for looking better. So someone actually inquired, where's the evidence for that? And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, he read the ayah of the Quran. وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever the Prophet gave you, take it. Whatever he forbid you from, told you to stay away from it. Yani from the Sunnah. This is wahyain. The Quran is revelation and the Sunnah is also revelation. So enjoining the good, forbidding the evil. By the way, the word la'na in hadith doesn't always mean what you and I may perceive. Sometimes it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he lifts a blessing away from that particular person. And sometimes it means a even more harsher meaning. Na'am. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, he stopped his wife. How he stopped his wife? From making ta'weez, amulets, or blowing on people, yani for helping them, what you might call ruqya today, that form of thing. How he stopped her from doing that. The hadith is long, so I'll paraphrase it. The hadith is from Abu Dawud. How Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, he said that I heard the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam say, Inna ruqa wa tama'ima wa tiwala shirkun. These amulets, good luck bracelets, good luck charms, and these things, these incantations, etc., all of this is shirk. So Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala's wife, she said, Abdullah, how can you say this? I had severe pain in the eye, and we used to go to a particular person, and he done some ruqya on me, as it were, and I got better. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, he said, this pain in the eye that you had, it was shaitan prodding you. And he was prodding you, and then when you went to that person, the shaitan stopped doing that. He wanted you to go to that person. Who was that person? A Yehudi, a Jewish man. Yani, it's a greater sin that was done. So he's prodding you only to get you to commit a bigger sin. And you thought that your eyes gone better because you went to that person and he done that, the blowing and the incantation or whatever it was, and my eyes gone better now. No. Actually, this is something that's led you to an even greater sin. As soon as he knew that he's led you to that greater sin, he stopped prodding the eye. You feel like you've got better. Is it not enough for you that the Prophet ﷺ taught you these words? يعني the words of Ruqya, إذا بالبأس رب الناس اشفي أنت شافي لا شفاء إلا شفاءك شفاء لا يغادر سقما. Rawahu Abu Dawud, hadith number 3288. So these are just some examples of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, and how the companions done that. Once in front of Abu Musa al-Ashari, his wife, she began to wail, and Abu Musa al-Ashari radiallahu ta'ala, he explained to her when she came to her senses. He said, فلما فاق قال أنا بريء مما بريئا منه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فإن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم بريئا من السائقة والحالقة والشاقة. The Prophet ﷺ, do you know, he said he frees himself from the woman who wipes and he beats her cheeks, pulls her hair, rips her clothes, wailing over the dead or over the qadr of Allah in that way. Rawahu Muslim. So brothers, the examples are many. I'll just mention one more. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala عن جابر قال كنا ننزل عن الغلمان ونترك على الجواري. رواه Abu Dawud. Jabir radiallahu ta'ala says, when we should see the young children, young boys only, wearing silk clothes, we used to tell them, take them off, wear something else. Change your clothes. Enjoining the good, forbidding the evil. Something that we just passes by us, wouldn't even bat an eyelid. Allah musta'an. So these are just some examples, and the examples are many. I hope and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives us the himma and the tawfiq to act upon that which we've looked at. Those who were able to come today, they came, walillah alhamd. And those who weren't able to come, actually, they should listen to this second part, because the second part will make a lot more sense today if you came to the first part also. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all to the truth. If there's any questions, inshallah, now. Naam, Shaykh. which companion did he give bay'ah to whom? Now, find out which companions there were, then we can use that as an evidence. Now, next question, inshallah. The point is, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, maybe this is not the best forum to discuss it, the ijtihad of the companions. One companion may have made an ijtihad in one issue. You'll find, as they say on the very next page, an even more senior companion telling him, don't do this. What do you do now? Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala an, Hussein radiallahu ta'ala an. What did Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala an say? What did the other companions say? Don't go, don't do this. What did they say to Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala? What did Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala say? He took his sword, he broke it into two. He said, I don't want to get involved in these things. When there's fitna, you even avoid those things that lead you to the fitna. To the extent he broke it. He said, what you people are arguing over, I've got nothing to do with it. I'm free in front of Allah over it. So where you've got one companion doing one thing and making ijtihad, you've got another saying that the Prophet ﷺ said this. What do? You'll see then, like likes of Ibn Hajar and others have said in his Fath. The usul is what? كل شيء يرجع إلى أصله. Everything has to go back to its foundational principle, the foundational matter. What's the foundational matter between us and others? فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Go back to Allah and His Rasul. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu used to pray in a certain way in ruku. Musannaf Abdul Razak. But the great plethora of other companions prayed in a certain other way, clasping their knees with their hands. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud didn't used to do that. What do I do now? Is it permissible for me to say, but Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, one of the senior companions, one of the first of the 5, 6, 7 of Islam that came to Islam, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, his action was to pray like that. No. Someone's ijtihad or someone's error even is not an evidence in our deen. In fact, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, and other Ahlul Ilm, Imam Ibn Khuzaymah also in his Sahih, and others, Ibn Hibban also, they brought chapter headings in the books of hadith. That Ibn Taymiyyah in his fantastic book, Raf'ul Laima, the lifting the blame against the people who blame scholars for falling into an error. For scholars falling into error, they blame, oh, well, why that scholar said that. And in that same book, he says, just because that scholar's fallen into an error, it doesn't allow you to follow him in that error. إِذَا آمَنَ فَأَمَنُوا إِذَا كَفَرَ فَكَفَرُوا. He says in Majmul Fatawa. So when he's upon Iman, you're upon Iman. And when he's upon Kufr, you're upon Kufr. التقليد العامة. قال بل وجدنا عليه ما آبنا أولو كان آباهم لا يعقلون شيئا ولا يهتدون. Our forefathers said, but your forefathers didn't know. So, the mistake of an alim, or the mistake of a companion, or the error of a companion, or the ijtihad of a companion, either he's right or he's incorrect. Now we're going to see, how do we know if he's correct or incorrect? By looking at what the other companion said. And you'll find that where one said, yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this, that, and the other said, no, don't make any kind of opposition to the ruler. Okay, now what do we do? Alaykum bi sunnati first. وَالسُنَّةُ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ عَضُّوا عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذِ. My sunnah first. What's the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? Hadith Sahih Muslim, Kitab al-Imara. Kitab al-Imara has many ahadith about rulership. So many narrations. O Prophet of Allah, what shall we do when the rulers like this? Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman and many narrations from him. O Prophet of Allah, what should we do when the rulers like this? What should we do when the rulers like that? In one narration, the Prophet himself is saying and talking about 5 characteristics. He won't follow my sunnah, he won't act upon my sunnah himself, he won't allow others to go upon my sunnah, he'll beat your backs, he'll be a tyrant. Jusmalul ins wa qulub shayateen, body of men and soul of devils. And he'll beat your back, وَأَخَذَ مَالُكَ, and he'll take your wealth. What should we do, Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam? Here the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam had an opportunity, did he not? There was nothing stopping the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, nothing at all. He had the means and he had the ability. Understand this point well, Habibi. He had the means and the ability to say at that point. And this is just one instance. Every instance where he was asked about the rulers, he had the means and the ability to say what? If you're able to raise your voice against him and you think there's a maslaha in it, there's a benefit, openly criticize him. Did he say that? La. He had the means and he had the ability to also say, "Hey, you know what? If you can get enough people get together, overthrow him." Did he say that? No. In fact, the narrations are silent on that, and therefore there's a warning from that. This is what's known as Imam Shafi'i said, Ibn Hajar mentioned it in his Al-Fath. This is Sunnah Tarkiyah. When we talk about the Mawlid, for example, one of the arguments that we make against the bid'ah of Mawlid is the Prophet ﷺ had the means and the cause to celebrate his own birthday, but he didn't. Therefore, to stay away from the Mawlid, it's what? It's Sunnah. It's Sunnah Tarkiyah, the Sunnah of abandonment. So it's Sunnah of the Rasul ﷺ not to go into rebellion, not to raise a voice against the ruler. This is the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, if at latter times there's the ijtihad of companions, and even if they're incorrect, they still get rewarded. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't hide behind that. We can't hide behind that. Just like it's an impossibility for someone of akal, as Ibn Rajab says, that al-ikhtilaf bayn al-ulama, the difference between the scholars, or the khilaf, the difference is this scholar says that scholar says that. That's not a hujjah. Laysa bi hujjatin. It's not an evidence in the deen. What's evidence? Qala Allah, qala Rasul. Bas. And the understanding of the companions. There's a lot more tafsil to this issue, but dare I say we're going to speak about this maybe some other time, inshallah. Yeah? Allahu ta'ala alam. Naam. Barakallahu fikum ikhwan. Naam. Naam. We can't make a maslaha as we go along. I perceive this benefit. It's maslaha fi deen. Not fil mu'amalat dealings between people. If I don't go, he'll be upset with me. That's not maslaha. Darul mafasid min jalb masalih. Yeah. So, if by doing something in that majlis is going to lead to a greater falsehood or a greater problem rather, it's going to lead to more fitna and fasad, then leave that because it's not within your ability. But at the minimum, then we have to recluse ourselves from that gathering, because iman is what? It has levels, and the lowest is to find it bad in the heart, to perceive it bad in the heart. The mistake is when we stay there, when we stay in that majlis of sin. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. Yeah, he sees, for example, fragrant innovation taking place, or bid'ah taking place, or what else it is. If I go now, so-and-so will be upset with me. And he has the ability to walk out of that door, then this is sin itself. Allah knows best. This is the problem, na'am. So we can't make up the mafsada maslaha rule as we go along, na'am. Allahu ta'ala alam. And that's another thing. There's this phenomenon today where people are saying, but so-and-so scholar was seen in the gathering of innovators. That's not evidence for you. A picture of a scholar in the gathering of the Ahlul Bid'ah, it's not an evidence for you. You don't know the situation, why that scholar went, the reasons he went, the necessities of going, the obligation of going, what the purpose was, what the context was. You don't know any of it. Since when do Ahl Sunnah base their manhaj upon pictures? This is not Jack and Ori, let's tell a story time. Yeah, this is a false ikhwani phenomenon that's taking over the people. So-and-so scholar, look at how he was with the innovators, mashallah. Ya akhi. Have you destroyed all the books? You tried to destroy one, waliyahudhu billah. What a jahil statement of trying to destroy a book of one of the scholars of Ahl Sunnah. Shall we now destroy all the books of manhaj and aqidah out there? No, brothers, we should have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you can't say something good to aid the deen, certainly don't say something that will harm the deen. I advise myself and anybody else concerning this. If we can't say good, wallahi, stay silent. من حسن الإسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعني المسلم من سلم المسلمون من لسانه ويده. Either say something good. فليكن خيرا أو ليصمت. Say something good about the scholars, about the Ahlul Ilm, about Ahlul Tawheed, Ahlul Sunnah, about the Salafiyun. Or keep your mouth firmly shut. The ulama masmuma. The flesh of the scholars is poison. It's better for you to speak against one of your elders. Don't speak against the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah in this way. We should eliminate this book or that book. Eliminate your own words, not the books of the ulama. This is a false statement that a person would make, and a person should ask themselves, what leads me to make such futile statements? May Allah have mercy on us all. May Allah forgive us and cover our sins. We love all of the du'at of Ahl Sunnah. Even those that err and make mistakes. We all err and make mistakes. But the point is that there's a limit. And we shouldn't go towards the people who gave us the principles of Da'wat al-Salafiyah. And today we have the audacity or the jur'ah to speak about them as if we wouldn't even speak about our own neighbor or even some Joey on the street. We wouldn't even speak to them like that. We should be very, very careful. And there's no sin. There shouldn't be any pride in taking back one's words openly. Those which are said openly should be taken back openly with a clear tawbah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best now. Brothers, we'll wrap you up here for today. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah guide us all to the truth. May Allah have mercy upon us. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نعم شيخ حياك الله بارك الله فيك. Shazad, unplug for me.